The doctor was giving the girl a vision check and suddenly he switched on the switch along with 2 waves of kinetic light. Camera eyeballs actually extracted a liquid similar to tears and flowed down the pipeline into a special vial. The doctor switched off the power and moved away from the machine with a sense of calmness, while the girl seemed oblivious to what she had just experienced. After the girl left, he couldn't wait to take out the still warm tears with a pipette and quickly drop them into his eyes, and the next moment he saw the girl's life from her point of view. It turns out that the doctor is a big pervert who uses this high-tech method to spy on other people's privacy. After getting great satisfaction, he would print out the corresponding labels according to what he saw and stick them on, then carefully put them into his long-time collection of treasures to be taken out and enjoyed when needed. At that moment, another female patient arrived and the doctor saw the bruises on her face and asked her if she had suffered domestic violence, but the woman said she fell on her own. A far-fetched story that he obviously did not believe. The doctor cared so much about the woman because she was his spiritual support. He even kept her tears in a separate place because he was in love with her. In order to find out the truth, the doctor immediately started the machine, and soon the tears were put into a vial, and then he hurriedly put the woman's tears. The image was as real as his own experience, and he realized that the woman had been abused by her boyfriend. What happened to her made him sad and angry, and then he made up his mind to avenge the woman's death. After thinking about it for 3 days, he called the woman because he heard that her boyfriend suffered from severe dyslexia, so he said he could help her get a free checkup. Since it was a freebie, the man immediately agreed. Then the doctor began to plan a terrible plan. He took out all kinds of tears containing horrible messages and mixed them all well to teach the man a lesson. The next day, the man arrived as promised, and after a series of fake diagnoses, the doctor decided that the man had a congenital eye disease. Then he brought in a machine and asked the man to point his eyes at a small hole above him. The man was a bit skeptical, but he complied. But as soon as he's finished fixing his head, the doctor suddenly asks if he still loves the woman. The man was puzzled by this strange statement, but just as he was about to lose his temper, a puff of smoke was thrown into his eyes. The man twitched a few times and instantly lost consciousness. Then some horrible images flashed in front of his eyes and he could not support himself and vomited in an instant. The bizarre situation made him realize that it was not a good place to stay, and he was about to leave when the images kept. The instructor carried a handful of bread and shoved it into the fat recruit's mouth and then asked the others to do push-ups so that everyone would hate the fat man, thus urging him to make progress. In the following training, Fatty ate a big mouth from the instructor because he couldn't distinguish between right and left, and made him take off his pants and put his thumb in his mouth and follow the last in the line. Waiting for the housekeeping check, everyone was serious but the fat guy was smiling. The instructor gave him 3 seconds to process his expression, but the fat man just couldn't control it. The instructor made him kneel down and choked him and he couldn't laugh anymore. They were newly enlisted U.S. Marines who needed to complete 35 weeks of training here to become inhumane war machines to be sent to the brutal battlefields of Vietnam. Fatso came in with dreams of serving America, but reality dealt him a series of blows. Because of his weight-related retardation, Fatso couldn't do anything right in the barracks. The 5,000-meter long distance run, Fatty just ran 200 meters and was exhausted. Obstacles to go through the test. 200 pounds of body weight itself is an obstacle to the trainer. Again and again to urge Fatty again and again to fall down. Pull-ups are even more of a nightmare. Others can pull at least 3 times while the fat man tried his best but could not do a single one with his legs helplessly pulling back. The instructor was furious and told him to get lost. Lastly, the fat man climbed the wall to the top, but because of his fear of heights, he couldn't climb over it, so he climbed back the way he came. In order to help Fatty keep up with the training, the instructor assigned Joker to give him one-on-one counseling. With the clown's encouragement, Fatty tried to overcome his fear. With the clown's careful help, Fatty quickly grasped the essentials and began to keep up with the team's training progress, and did not lag behind the team anymore. The clown also became a good friend of Fatty's, but the good times didn't last long when the instructor discovered that Fatty's suitcase was unlocked and scolded him again. Then he lifted the fat man's box to check. The instructor actually found a bread in the box and was so angry that he decided to punish all the recruits. In the end, all the recruits were punished to do 100 push-ups because of Fatty's gluttony, which escalated their dissatisfaction with Fatty. Finally, the discontent erupted when the fat man made another mistake and was punished as a group. Soldiers wrapped hard soap in a towel and tied it tightly on both sides to make a simple meteor hammer. This kind of hammer not only hurt a lot, but also made almost no sound when hitting, and even the wound could not be detected at all afterwards. In order to take revenge on Fatty, the soldiers sneaked to Fatty's bedside at 2 a.m. and used stockings to tighten his mouth while holding his body down with a quilt. After this night, the simple fat man no longer had a smile on his face, but a confused expression. But it didn't take long for it to turn into a murderous face. The expression of wanting to kill someone can't be hidden, but it's not clear who he wants to kill. He became a loner, often talking to himself over the barrel of his rifle, and became the company's top marksman, never falling behind in the worst long-distance running, and even memorizing the most difficult sentry rules. Soon, 35 weeks of training were over and we were about to leave for Vietnam. The instructor read out the distribution list, and the others were assigned to the reserve and logistics, except for Fatty, who was assigned directly to the front line. and whose murderous eyes signaled that the time for revenge had come. On the last night of the recruiting company, Joker heard a strange noise from the toilet and cautiously pushed it open and walked in to find Fatty sitting on the toilet with an unspeakable murderous look in his eyes. After saying hello, the fat man went back to loading bullets into his magazine. Joker was scared but still had the courage to persuade Fatty to turn back. Unexpectedly, Fatty replied with a grimace that he was determined not to turn back and stood up. The noise from the toilet woke everyone up. The instructor told the others to go to bed and went into the toilet to scold the two men as usual. At this time, the clown told the instructor that the fat man's gun was loaded and ready to fire. Looking at the fat man's fierce expression, the instructor's tone also eased, carefully persuade the fat man to put down the gun and go back to sleep, but the fat man, a hand